When I was younger, parliamentary standards were such that a Premier of New South Wales lost his job over receiving a bottle of wine.
I still can't recall the receipt of a gift of a bottle of 1959 Grange. I can't explain what happened.
And I think a minister of the country lost his job over a Paddington bear that he didn't declare.
Dr Monique Ryan can remember a time in Australian politics where small breaches could cost a career.
But we're like frogs in water, and we've over time become inured to increasing, I have to say, corruption within the political system, in that we've tolerated the loss of transparency and we've tolerated decreasing standards of behaviour by our politicians.
Over recent years, there's been a marked increase in the number of lobbyists with access to Parliament House. Literally thousands move through the building meeting politicians and staffers, often leaving little public trace of who they've spoken to and why. I'm Daniel James, and you're listening to 7am. Today, Independent MP Monique Ryan on the thousands of lobbyists roaming the halls of Parliament House, and the system she says allows them to influence, behind closed doors, the decisions that affect us all. It's Tuesday, March 10. Dr Monique Ryan, thank you for joining us on 7am. Can you start off by telling us about these mysterious orange passes in Parliament? What are they and what do they access?
Well, the orange passes give lobbyists access to Parliament House, and once you have one of those, you can enter the House and walk the halls of Parliament House pretty freely. You can knock on the doors of parliamentarians and get in their ears, essentially, talk to them about whatever it is that you're being paid to lobby for, and there's no record of your activities, effectively. The issues around this have been of concern to many parliamentarians for a long period of time.
You've got politicians willing to sling mud, but they're not actually willing to address the root causes of this, which is a lobbying system that is just so loose.
There is a lobbyist code of conduct, but it's not legislated, it's regulated, which is a distinction which might appear like small print, but in fact it's really quite important. It's not enforced. We have no way of ascertaining who the various lobbyists in the House are dealing with at any one point in time, what the substance of those meetings is or what the outcome is.
More than 2,000 people hold orange lobbyist passes, giving them access to this building. That's many, many more than 727 on the register.
And it's a significant transparency issue.
Both major parties taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations. You've got to ask seriously, what are these donations buying? You know, not only do they buy access, they're obviously buying silence.
Most Australians don't have an issue with there being lobbyists. There's always been lobbyists, there always will be. People come and talk to me every day about things that matter to them, and I think that's appropriate. It's good. Politicians should be open to the input and the requests from people that they represent. The issue is one of transparency and the fact that professional lobbyists have effectively open access to politicians, whereas many of the other people who'd like to talk to us about the things that matter to them don't have the same access. They don't have access to an orange pass. And so there's a really unequal playing field, really, when it comes to access to politicians between professional lobbyists and other people who come to talk to us about the things that matter to them.
And when we talk about professional lobbyists, who are we talking about here? Who has these passes and what are some of the industries that they represent?
Well, there's two sorts of lobbyists. There's those who are in-house, which means that they might be employed, for example, by the Pharmacy Guild or by Woodside. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to nominate to the lobbyist register, strangely enough. It's assumed that everyone knows that they're professional lobbyists. And so those individuals, who could be as many as 4 out of 5 of the lobbyists in the House, actually don't have to go on the lobbyist register at all. Then there's the individuals who are employed by a lobbying firm who might be lobbying within the House for 4 or 5 different commercial interests. But certainly the people who seem to be most loud in the House at the moment and who in many instances seem to have the greatest ability to reach politicians are people who represent industries like the gambling industry, alcohol industry, fossil fuel industry, oil, gas, and the like. I meet a lot with people from the medical field, from people from the medical industry, and reflects the fact that I have a particular interest in healthcare. But many of the people in the House would be pushing the cause of much bigger organisations than the sorts of people that I would generally meet with.
You mentioned gambling. How many of their lobbyists are roaming the halls at the moment, and how prominent are they within the Parliament?
Well, it's interesting. I probably don't hear from those individuals very often because they know that I won't meet with them. And that's one of the things. I couldn't tell you how many are there because there's no way that we can have transparency over that. It's really hard to know. I'm told that the relevant organisations have multiple lobbyists in the House, and we know that very often they employ former politicians and former senior public servants who might have a relationship with people who are still working within the House. They may be pointing one former politician at people from their stripe and another former politician at members of another party. But it's really hard to know exactly who's there and who they're talking to.
Have you given out any of these orange passes yourself?
So far, I think I've given out one orange pass with 2 or 3 in the making, and they're all to individuals with an interest in climate advocacy or advocacy on behalf of health groups. Mm-hmm. The only one that I've had so far was immediately declared on David Pocock's website, where he's put up effectively a voluntary register, so people like myself can put on notice to the general public which orange passes we've sponsored. But last time I checked David's website, the only people who'd made that voluntary declaration were independents, I think, and crossbenchers.
Surprise, surprise. The number of new lobbyists registrations has peaked in recent years. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there has been some pressure on the lobbying industry from independents like myself, David Pocock, Helen Haynes and others in recent years, and that has put pressure on the lobbyists. You can see it in terms of the emails that they sometimes send, where they make it clear that at the end of their emails that they are a registered lobbyist on the registered lobbyist register. So I think they know that they're under pressure, and so many of them are actually choosing to go onto that register now. But we still don't know exactly how many are not registered. And there's been suggestions in the past that as many as 4 out of 5 are not registered. We know that there's over 2,000 on the register now. If you do the maths, that means that there's as many as 10,000 lobbyists who are regularly accessing Parliament House, who are getting in the ears of politicians on a regular basis, but we really have minimal transparency about that.
Coming up, the revolving door of politicians turned lobbyists. Monique, presumably lobbyists wouldn't be there if they didn't have an impact on government decision makers. So what do you worry about the most when it comes to their influence over our leaders?
I came from the medical industry, and when I was a doctor, when I first started practicing medicine, people used to come and talk to us all the time, drug reps, and they gave us gifts and they sponsored conferences and lunches and dinners and all that sort of thing. And we kind of felt that it was benign because we all felt that we were strong-minded enough that we wouldn't be influenced by those relatively minor inducements. Then the evidence came out that that is actually not the case, that even minor inducements change the way that doctors prescribed. And so in medicine, we were very careful to get rid of all of that. Now we're seeing that those sorts of inducements are largely unregulated at a federal government level. And the fact is, these people are smart people. They wouldn't be spending a whole lot of money in the House to sponsor events or to sponsor individuals who are within the House talking to politicians if they didn't know that they were getting a reasonable return on that investment. And so I think we can be sure that the 10,000 plus lobbyists who are in Parliament House are influencing parliamentary decision-making to a significant extent.
And I guess the promise of a career after politics is a significant inducement for some.
Well, it's always been a pathway, and we've seen in recent years that pathway is becoming, I worry about transparency, but some people are pretty barefaced about the speed of their transition from the public sector roles to private sector roles. We saw Christopher Pyne and Julie Bishop go straight into those sorts of roles after they left Parliament in 2022.
Former Defence Minister Christopher Pyne could face a Senate inquiry over his controversial new job.
Labor has accused former Foreign Minister Julie Bishop of potentially breaching the ministerial standards. Shadow Foreign Minister...
We've seen so many public servants go from senior public service roles to jobs in the industries with which they've been interacting while in government in recent years, and none of them have been held account for that. And that's one of the things that I think we have to change. We won't change people's behaviour unless they know that they're going to be held to account for their actions. But what we've seen in the last 5 or 10 years is just a complete loosening of any regulation over people's use of that revolving door between ministerial jobs or senior public service jobs and industry.
Monique, you asked a question in Parliament that goes to the heart of this.
Today it's reported that you've written to the presiding officers requesting yet another review into lobbying, a review which is closed to the public, according to reporting. Will you open this inquiry up to the people? And will you commit to enforcing a more transparent and robust lobbying code of conduct?
What did you make of the PM's response, and what would you like to see happen?
I'm not conducting a review. It's already been underway. Provides an opportunity to consider increased transparency and rigour in relation to sponsored passes for Parliament House on the basis of business requirements, particularly in relation to professional lobbyists.
The PM has written to the Speaker and the head of the Senate about a review that they were going to undertake anyway, to suggest that they should look at the question of orange passes. And that's a good thing. I think they should look at orange passes too, but it's a very small part of the puzzle. And the reality is that they have limited ability to change other aspects of the actions of lobbyists within Parliament House. So in response to some advocacy that I'd undertaken, my Clean Up Politics Act, which has been put before Parliament twice now, and David Pocock's also put it before the Senate, there was a Senate inquiry which reported in 2024 about lobbying activities, and it suggested that we should have a formal independent inquiry into lobbyist activities in Parliament House, which should look at whether or not we should be legislating limitations around their actions and enforcing things like closing the revolving door and opening ministerial diaries. The Senate inquiry report is sitting on the desk of the Special Minister of State. It's never been responded to, and that is really what we should be doing, rather than the PM devolving a very minor part of this puzzle to the leaders of the two chambers. The PM should be commissioning an independent inquiry into all aspects of lobbying activities in the House and the regulation around that, with a view to legislating something which is enforceable.
Finally, Monique, I guess the danger with this stuff is that people in the broader community don't necessarily care about all the comings and goings of Parliament because it doesn't directly affect them in their view. Why should Australians care who is granted access to our leaders?
I actually think Australians really do care about this issue because Australians care about fairness, and this is effectively an equity issue. It's about who gets to talk to our politicians and influence their decision-making and the basis on which that decision-making is undertaken. It shouldn't be because the richer and louder voice is in your ear more. It should be on the basis of what's the best thing for the country and for the electorates that we represent. So I think people do care about this because they care about fairness and they want their politicians to represent them, not vested interests.
Dr. Monique Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
That's a pleasure.
Also in the news, Iran and Israel have exchanged fresh attacks as the war enters its second week. Israel says it has expanded its campaign striking fuel depots near Tehran and more than 600 Hezbollah-linked targets in Lebanon. where 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in fighting. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations says that more than 1,300 Iranian civilians have been killed in US and Israeli strikes. Iranian attacks have killed about 10 people in Israel since the conflict began. Meanwhile, Iran has indicated it has chosen the country's new supreme leader, with Ayatollah Khamenei's son, Mujtaba, set to take on the role. And markets have started to expect the US will continue its war on Iran, which has restricted oil shipping and sent energy prices soaring. Global oil prices surged past $100 a barrel for the first time since 2022. The US dollar has also risen in value at the expense of the Australian dollar, which has fallen back below 70 US cents. I'm Daniel James, you've been listening to 7am. We'll be back tomorrow.